As we close out 2025, we're giving you this free episode of Deconstructed as we take vacation. We will see you in 2026. Happy holidays, everyone.
Welcome, good people, to Appropriation versus Appreciation Deconstructed.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a lot of fun on the regular episode.
Yes, we
And
did.
now we can just go in deeper and start talking about who we see, what we see, and that area of exchange that some people can sometimes get into their feelings about.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you do correctly attribute it to appropriation, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And I think all of us can fall into that trap because culture is one of those things that's super important to us,
Mm-hmm.
as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen people so-called leverage or take over or vulture or do other totally more than inconsiderate, just dangerous things with it. So let's just jump into that and like I said on Belonging Deconstructed,
Mm-hmm.
Supreme, I think, is one of those companies that kind of sits on that. A lot to do with how the history of Supreme went.
Yeah. Okay, so talk about that.
So Supreme, kind of started kind of in that sneaker skater type
Mm-hmm.
place, which is very diverse community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a plus.
Yeah.
A whole lot of hip hop references, a whole lot of hip hop love
Mm-hmm.
in the beginnings of that community, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to a lot of Black art forms,
Yeah.
there is an extremely valid cautionary response to people who are not just Black and brown coming in,
Mhm.
because some people actually do appreciate it. Some people don't. Some people just
Right.
leverage it. Now, funny enough, there's a lot of Black and brown people who also just leverage it, but
Yeah.
there's that too.
That's its
But
other story.
correct. But when it comes to those who don't actually appreciate and still appropriate, I definitely understand. So Supreme became very popular, became very big. We also know when things become popular, now you have more people coming in and trying to be a part of it. So that's where things can start to get dicey.
When you say more people are coming into it, are you talking about it becomes more corporate or
So even before it became corporate, because that was also coming down the line as well.
mm-hmm.
But when you have growth around something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it's more popular and more people who are not naturally in that community are becoming interested,
Mm-hmm.
and there's varying levels of activity because of that.
Yeah.
You have people who are just kind of not just because it's a clothing brand, but people who are just trying it on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
People who are going to try it on for a while until it doesn't serve them anymore. People are just trying it for a moment. And then you also have the people who they try it on, they are in it for real.
Mm-hmm.
And that popularity often does attract corporate attention,
Mm-hmm.
because now they want some of that money, right? I saw it happen in the music industry all of the time. Oh, we don't think you're ready. We're not going to sign you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're blown up on your own? So yeah, come back in. We're going to help you. Help me what?
Right.
You didn't help me
Mhm.
before, but now that I helped myself, now you're interested?
Mm-hmm.
Copy. And then that's when stuff starts getting watered down. That's when
Yeah.
stuff starts ending up in places that it really shouldn't be. And that's where appropriation can just multiply, grow exponentially, because now it's in these places where you have people who are interested in that cool factor and that new factor. And because they so badly want to be a part of something, now they're claiming it.
Okay, but I'm going to take a step back with the corporate piece, right? Because this goes back to a conversation that we had earlier, which is it's not just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And if you are a company that's saying, I want to buy Supreme, or I want to, expand it, or I want to grow that brand, et cetera, what will you have to sacrifice in order to do that? Because I think that that's a question that companies are not asking themselves when they're thinking about acquisition or when they're thinking about expansion. What will you have to sacrifice? Like, who and what does this brand stand for? Who and what do you stand for? And can you legitimately make that work as a partnership or as an expansion or as an acquisition, and have that still be aligned with your values and who you are? Now, if you have a conqueror mentality that's very sort of colonizer, if you will, then your idea is we'll just go ahead and take it over, and then we'll just kind of squeeze it so that it's more like us versus us adjusting to them.
So I think there's something that's even worse that often happens. Because I feel like if Big Bank takes Little Bank and says we're going to squeeze it to be more like Big Bank, I think that's one thing that's terrible. But that feels more obvious when that happens. What I usually see happening is large company buying small company because of its success and then changing everything around it, and with the thought, I don't even want to go with intent yet, but with the thought that they are enhancing what it is that they're doing when they're actually extracting from what got them there.
That's just another form of conquering.
No, I agree.
Right?
But I think that there's a difference between the two. They both fit the same category. But I think when you don't even take the time to understand what got a company to a certain place, and you're looking basically at the ledger sheet, okay, how do we cut costs? How do we change the supply chain? How do we change how this thing is made? Prioritizing efficiency, but actually taking away from quality, you're doing a disservice to everybody, including yourself.
And that I will take that back to, and I don't know this 100%, okay, but I'm going to take that back to the conversation we had earlier, which is the priorities of the ones who are making the decisions.
Right.
If you see those kinds of activities as extra, as ornamental, as extracurricular, then you will miss the point, particularly if you know nothing about the customer or the consumer. But you can also think that knowledge of the customer or consumer is extracurricular, ornamental, and not a priority. So if you're only looking at the Excel sheet or whatever, the ledger, as you said, then sure, you'll make those kinds of cuts because you're only looking at that one piece for a couple of reasons. One, you never prioritized the marketing or the consumer understanding in any aspect of your career, probably, or even your education, based on my own experience. And so you're only going to see, okay, we've got this group, they're buying this much, we don't need all this other stuff as long as we keep the brand, right? But because of their lack of training and understanding, in many ways, they don't understand all the elements of a brand that aren't just about the thing that we're selling. It's about the story. It's about the community. It's about the culture around it that also matters, because what these folks can't forget is that no matter what, you're selling to humans.
Mm-hmm.
And humans are social creatures.
Right.
And need community. And by extension of that, create and build culture around those communities that they need. So.
But it's, I mean, once again, you are absolutely right. But it's confounding when a company is like, hey, we want to purchase, we want to buy in on this thing because of what you did.
Yeah.
Now there are, I can't think of any specific examples right now, but I feel like there have to be examples of companies that purchase a company to kill it because
it's a competitor.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about, because that's
Correct.
like catch and kill. Yeah.
Correct. We're talking about, oh, y'all did a great job. We want some of this money now, which I get from a business sense. But we're going to come in and water this down. We're going to come in and take this thing over.
Right.
Even though you have a community that made so much noise and threw so much money at you, we want some of it. So now we're going to take, we didn't understand how to mix up this secret sauce. Y'all did. And instead of me giving you money to continue to do it and grow it and me get my cut, I want to take over, even though I don't know how the secret sauce is made, but I'm going to go and try and make it without even asking you or getting your full input on how to make it.
Well, that's ego.
But it's, I mean, ego in many cases is stupid, but yes, that's stupid.
Yes. But but we know that people will potentially grind a whole country into the ground over ego. And we've seen this happen globally.
This is a real-time podcast, people. This is an absolute real-time podcast. Sorry.
We've seen this happen globally,
Right.
in many countries all over the world. Some countries that we would consider democracies now have gone through horrible, like, places in history where people were completely crushed over one person's
Right.
ego.
Right.
Whole economies crushed. Whole communities, whole cultures, whole everything crushed. Gas chambered over somebody's ego. And we should not believe that corporate or business acquisition is any different. It's just, it's just about like those, going again back to those values, of the company. If they're going to basically make themselves pirates, then that's going to be what they're going to rob and pillage.
Right.
Like that's what they want. That's what they're going to do. But if you want to, because some of them are also only in it for the short time. They just want that quick return. They're out and they'll go do it again. Right. But if you really wanted to invest in that long-term community, that approach ain't it. And then people will let you know. But I think where I get frustrated is for brands and companies that know that they're taking that approach, but also are ready to scapegoat the brand or the company or the product that they were celebrating when their pillaging fails.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing also, which we've seen entirely too often. But I do also want to I still want to kind of keep the promise and talk more about the exchange part, right?
Mm-hmm.
That line where it can come into question whether it's appreciation or appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back to music, not only because that's where I started,
Mm-hmm.
but there is an example that comes up in my mind and comes up in some podcast that I'm thinking about when there's a conversation about hip hop
Mm-hmm.
and Asian culture,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and some people who feel like it's an appropriation thing that's happening. And then I think of a group who the majority of the members are from Staten Island.
Wu-Tang?
Exactly.
Huh.
And it's
Go
just like,
figure.
so cultural exchange or cultural
Yeah.
appropriation. I think about the fact that growing up, me or a lot of my friends and I grew up watching kung fu movies.
Mm-hmm.
We would go back upstairs from playing
Mm-hmm.
because it was Saturday afternoon and kung fu movie was coming on,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to watch it. I'm thinking about the love that so many people have for Bruce Lee, and this is just one example. There's plenty of examples out there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's one of those things that always sticks out to me where I feel it's so important to look at things deeply enough to actually look and determine what is appreciation, what is appropriation, and then the levels. What is appreciation and you going too far with or without intent?
Mm-hmm.
And how can it actually maybe bleed into appropriation without it being obviously done?
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what we need to do, to me, is looking at things more deeply. You can always have that reaction at the surface. That reaction at the surface should empower you or activate you to look at what's underneath that, I think, because that's where you start to find the more real answers.
I think that that's correct. I think the challenge that we have with appreciation is that it can really come from a genuine place,
Absolutely.
a genuine place of a desire to connect within one's means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Wu-Tang, they didn't grow up necessarily with all kinds of like access and resources and the ability to even take kung fu to like get some of that like history and knowledge. They only had access to what they had, right? But I think even, and I'm just going off of their Hulu series, right? Because I don't know the ins and outs, so you could correct me. But once they started to grow and once they became global, then it was like all these choices they had to decide about what they were going to do and what that meant for the brand and who was included and who wasn't. And I would say probably something similar happened with Fubu, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I know, I think they're probably still more popular to this right now in 2025 in China than here. And they just kind of went where the audience was, but like I think that there can be a bit of like a purity in something when it's new and early and young and people are engaging with what they believe what they believe is appreciation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Appropriation, I think, often comes along when, there becomes this like corporate endeavor behind it. And now we've got to go global. Now we've got to, and so you have to live up to these projections, these expectations when what you were really doing at first was just creating art, you know? So I think that there's always this fine line, because we talked earlier about like part of appreciation is understanding and knowing the history, but then also realizing that people, particularly now, because of the internet, because of social media, they're exposed to something that they feel connected to, and they want to like get involved,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and perhaps they didn't do, you know, that kind of work, but we would encourage it still, you know.
Yeah. Because I guess also there's one of the ways that it feels easiest to tell a difference, at least with individuals. Usually you can tell when there's a certain reverence for something,
Mhm.
right? It's not necessarily that you know the entire history as soon as you come in,
Mhm. Mhm.
but when you have a genuine love for something,
Mhm.
the type of work that you put in is going to be different.
Mhm.
You're going to want to reach a certain depth the more you get into it. Sometimes you'll get so deep into it, it's just like, okay, you've gone deeper than some of the arbiters for real. It's just like,
Mhm. Mhm.
oh, they want to know everything about this.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of study that comes with that, and then it is displayed in however they communicate or show appreciation for this thing. And that's what I mean by the depth, because sometimes because a person just looks different, or they don't look like
Mhm.
the basically the stereotype
Mhm.
of that cultural community
Mhm.
that they're there to extract.
Yeah.
And some of that comes from because we've seen it happen so many times.
Mhm.
So I get it.
Mhm.
But that's why there's a need for the depth to understand or to pay attention as to whether this person is looking to leverage or otherwise appropriate, or if they're really there to appreciate.
And like people need to be held, like folks need to be held to the same standard.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are people who look like the stereotype that are only there to extract, you
Mhm.
know? But like that one's harder to catch because, oh, well, they seem like they look like they belong,
Mhm.
right? So if we're gonna have that standard, if we're looking for that reverence, then everybody can get it. You know?
Right. Right. But it's kind of funny because when you're talking about standards, now we're talking about holding
Policing.
standards. Oh, I mean, we're talking about policing. We are. But
Right.
the funny thing is, because humans are complex, there is a certain level of hypocrisy that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's once again the intellectual versus the emotional that's happening there. That happens with every single human being on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And a certain level of policing, or a certain level of arbitration, or a certain level of decisions being made for people or against people. But once again, the depth tends to take care of that, because when you start looking at things at a different depth or at a deeper level, now those standards actually have to be upheld, because that's how you're able to score. That's how you're able to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're able to see whether what's happening at the surface is real or not.
Right.
But yeah, it's just I implore the people to continue with the depth. Like, I can't tell people to not react,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be not human.
Fair.
It's extremely unfair to tell people not to react. The amount of rants that I've had in my life, the amount of rants that I had today, it would be ridiculous to tell people not to react to things. But what happens after the reaction? And I think that's something that we sometimes have to remember on the internet. The internet is full of reactions.
Right.
And we have to sometimes understand where those reactions are coming from and whether or not people stay in the reaction or kind of calm down and rethink things and be like, okay, well, maybe my reaction was not 100% correct.
Or maybe your reaction is correct, but you have to understand why.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with one of my favorite creative directors at my agency recently.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a certain scene that they were trying to decide whether they wanted it or not. So there was the creative team wanted to go one way, client wanted to go another way. And I heard the argument. He told me the argument that the client was making.
Mm-hmm.
And the creative team, had a different argument, right? But what was missing was being able to ensure that his argument could include the client's concern with data that supported why the creative team's perspective was potentially the better way to go. Right? Because it's not enough just to say, oh, this is what I want, this is what I'm experiencing, or to say, I don't like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to have the knee-jerk reaction because the emotion is telling you something. The next step that I'll always have people explore is the why. And because we still have relatively free access to the internet, at least in the United States, that's something that you can investigate fairly quickly with really valuable sources. Because you might have to do a little more than AI, okay? Unless they're going to cite you some really good sources that you could dig into further. But I think the emotion is important.
Yeah.
The emotion that you're experiencing is important. Happy, sad, anger, all that, everything in between. But that next step is to really do that investigation. And that's before you respond.
Yeah. Yeah. And, once again, shout out to all the companies that actually try to trademark something that they found from somebody else. Like that's like, pardon the pun, that's supreme appropriation. I didn't mean it that way, but it came out that way. And,
no, I understand because okay.
Yeah. So just finish the point and then we'll wrap up.
Oh yeah, the point was Spellman and Morehouse just copyright Spellhouse.
Oh, okay.
Just did that in 2025, and I was happy for them.
Yeah.
But I know that's yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good place to end it because I think that's gonna come up again also.
Yes.
So once again, thank you to the Patreon members. If you're new, if you've been here for a while, thank you. Don't forget to comment in the Patreon. Let's talk about stuff. Comment in the Patreon and tell us what you want to talk about. Let's just go ahead and kind of wrap these things up and get to going for the next series of episodes. Until then, we will see you soon.